Chairman Cox for a few words.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the introduction. And I appreciate being in Lewis County, where all the legislators are now. So, it's kind of nice when you got one Democrat on who can blame for everything that goes wrong. And he goes from first to being a Republican. But better to him than I came up from New York City where it's 7-1 Democrats. We got 52 members of the city council and 3 Republicans. So it's a little bit different there, a little bit different. But the parties are fighting hard. They're building themselves up. And it's a different situation, obviously, than here in Lewis County. But your chairman's got a wonderful tradition here. His grandfather, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but we had a great conversation about this going back historically. His grandfather was a lawyer, a member of the Assembly, a member of the State Senate. He was then a judge. He took Rockefeller around when Rockefeller started running in '58, and Rockefeller didn't know anything about New York State. Someone had to take him around. And your grandfather took him around. And then when there were some issues with the state chairman and he had to leave, he needed a good state chairman. And guess what? His grandfather, Rockefeller, decided his grandfather would be the state chairman. He became the state chairman. And then after a while went back and became a judge. What a career. What a career. A lot of history there. Great history. And he was the state chairman. So I am the first state chairman since him to be in Lewis County. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to actually have a conversation with you, answer your questions. But since I'm going on to be a part of President Trump's campaign, I thought I'd talk a little bit about presidential campaigns. Because that's, after all, I've been involved in about 12 of them. And it's where I got started in politics. I was a senior in high school, and this very pretty girl named Patricia Nixon showed up at my sister's high school in New York City. And her father had just lost the governorship of California after losing the presidential campaign against Kennedy. And in '63, she showed up senior and met at a class dance, fell in love, and started dating. And throughout the campaign, I was a de facto member of the Nixon family. That campaign it's known as the biggest comeback ever, coming back from those failures, losing its governor, race for governor of California, and his coming back to be president. It was, and I followed it, and it was, there was many great experiences I had during that following, but that's how I got involved in politics and interested in it. And after a lot of other campaigns, the last one was a fantastic campaign also. It is known as the biggest upset ever. Donald Trump's win in 2016 was the biggest upset in presidential history. And looking forward to 2020, and this is why I'm eager to be on this campaign. It's always nice to be part of a winning campaign. And this is going to be a big winning campaign for Donald Trump. He's going to win big time in 2020. And the reason for it is, first of all, the economy. You heard the saying, it's economy stupid. This is Mr. Carvel, who was Clinton's campaign manager. That's economy. Well, it's the economy. And the economy's doing well around the country. I know it's a little bit different up in the North Country, but even here, things have gotten better. That's not because of Andrew Cuomo, that's because of Donald Trump. Let me assure you of that. You've got growth going over 3%. It couldn't get over 2% under Obama. You've got inflation is low, and the unemployment is at the lowest it's been for 50 years. Lowest unemployment. Manufacturing jobs are coming back in the Rust Belt, and that's going to be a very good base for a really winning campaign. And I think that the president's going to be doing so well, we could even, win New York State. Win New York State for the first time since 1984. A Republican presidential candidate can win New York State. And actually, Donald Trump wants to win New York State. Right after he became the presumptive nominee, the next morning his staff had me in front of him, along with the very experienced chairman of Pennsylvania, two of us. And what do you do next? Now you're the presumptive nominee. After the Indiana primary, all the other candidates are gone. Where do you go next? And we were involved in talking to him about that, and took the suggestions, did things, and afterwards he said, Ed, we're going to win New York. What do I say? I mean, what's it going to happen? And I don't want to say Donald Trump, it ain't going to happen. And it clicked to me, I said, no, Donald, Pennsylvania first. Because Pennsylvania was possible. And if he was going to win, he had to win Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania chair picked it up from there, and he started talking to Donald Trump. And Reince Priebus, the chairman who had just been hired by Donald Trump, he said, you're going to be my chairman. And they started talking about how they were going to win Pennsylvania. And in fact, they did win Pennsylvania. I'll get into that a little bit later. But that's one thing. This is going to be a big win. It's always nice to be in the middle of a big win, to be a part of that. The second thing is that I think it's going to be a realignment campaign. This goes back to history. The history we didn't talk about, sure. And it gets a little bit wonkish, but let me get into a little bit. President Nixon, who was really the first real Republican president after the FDR Truman. Eisenhower, he didn't know whether he was Republican or Democrat. He was just presiding. But my father-in-law was a real Republican. He wanted to make the Republican Party into the majority party in the United States. It was a minority party. We didn't have either house of Congress. He got elected because of all the problems of the war and all the riots and everything that's going on. They needed someone strong to handle it. He was hired by the American people to do that, did a good job of it as president. But in order to build a Republican majority party, I had to do two things. Bring in the other conservatives who were out there who were part of the Democratic coalition. And the first were, of course, the Southern Democrats. They were natural Republicans because they were conservative, but they were voted, because of the Civil War and Reconstruction, they voted Democrat just automatically. And his 72 campaign was the first campaign of a Republican presidential candidate that won as part of the winning coalition, the Southern Democrats. And after that, except for Jimmy Carter, who was an evangelical Southerner, every Republican presidential candidate carried the South. It became part of the Republican coalition. And in the 80s and the 90s, we started winning in the South at the state level, the governorships, the members of Congress, etc. And so now that is a base of our party. The other base that my father-in-law felt we should bring in is we call them the ethnic Democrats in the Rust Belt. They became the Reagan Democrats. They are the blue-collar workers in the Rust Belt states: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin. If you take a look historically, except for the Nixon-Reagan landslides, the two biggest states that are really where these blue-collar workers, these ethnic Democrats really dominate are Pennsylvania and Michigan. And those two states went for the Democratic candidate in every presidential election except for the Nixon and Reagan landslides. That means they went for Carter, they went for Clinton, they went for Gore, they went for Kerry, they went for Obama. But guess what? Donald Trump in 2016 carried those voters. They came in, and it wasn't a landslide election, but they made the difference. He won Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes. And those Democrats who crossed over to vote for him made the difference. Mrs. Clinton thought she had the firewall in Pennsylvania and Michigan and even in Ohio. And guess what? It wasn't there. He won Pennsylvania by 40. He won Michigan by 17,000 votes, and he won Wisconsin. And that was the reason for the big upset. He reached out for those voters at the very start by changing the Republican position with respect to trade and immigration and really highlighting it and hitting it hard. This election in 2020, I think, will make them a permanent part of the Republican coalition going forward and will make the Republican Party the majority party in the country and not the minority party. And that's going to be, this is called a realignment election. To be part of that is, I'm looking forward to that and being part of that process. There's a third reason, though, that this national campaign is important. Well, this is really a existential fight that's going on. Because the Democrats, as they see that that the Republicans are taking away from them the conservative parts of their coalition, they are going harder to the left. So Bernie Sanders, a socialist, capital S, is one of their two leading candidates. And Joe Biden is a nice guy, right? He's a nice guy, and he seems kind of conservative. He comes from Scranton. He could get those Rust Belt voters. Well, guess what? He's turned into a socialist. He just adopted the big Green New Deal. He adopted that. Plagiarized it, in fact. Anyone reading the news, he plagiarized it. Because he really doesn't believe it, but whatever to win. So he's converting to be a socialist. So we really have a choice in this country, in this upcoming election. Are we going to be a socialist country? Or are we going to be what America's always been, always about the individual? You know, and our Declaration of Independence, right? We're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's about the individual. Our Creator and the individual. It's not about government. For the socialists, it's all about government, power, for its own sake. And they never learned. The Soviet Union, right, was supposed to be, you know, the big dominant power. Well, it dissolved because it couldn't work. Look what's happening in Venezuela right now. One being the richest country in South America to being one of the poorest, everyone's living in poverty. As Margaret Thatcher famously said, the problem with socialism is pretty soon you run out of other people's money, and it doesn't work. And that's what. And so we have a real choice in this election. It's nice to have a choice election, particularly with the things that we Republicans stand for are really the important things. That's freedom. I call ourselves the GOP, the Grand Opportunity Party. We represent opportunity for everyone. We for freedom and opportunity and accountability and limited government and local control, and fiscal responsibility, and security, both national and locally. That's what we're for. That's what America's for. That's what America's about. And we have to win this presidential election. And look, Donald Trump laid it right out. He said, America will never be a socialist country, period. That's what this campaign is going to be about. It's fun to be about that kind of campaign. There's really a differentiation. We're standing on the right side, and they are on the wrong side. And talking about a state that's going in the wrong direction, New York State, under Andrew Cuomo. I don't have to tell you about it. I mean, the highest taxes, the most burdens of regulations, the highest educational costs and poor results. It just goes over. Killing fracking, killing the natural gas industry in the southern tier, just killing a whole industry to satisfy the radical environmentalists. $15 minimum wage, does that work upstate? It doesn't work. Young people don't get that first job, et cetera. And all the burdensome things are being put on big and small businesses, particularly now that the Democrats control everything in Albany. It's just all going in the wrong direction. So in this election, at the presidential level, if we win big, if we win New York State also, or even if we don't, we are going to start down ballot. The people that Trump will draw out will make a difference and will enable us to win back, hopefully, our majority in the state Senate and to be in a position where we can, in 2022, defeat Andrew Cuomo, win the governorship, and have good Republican governing here in New York State and get it going on the right track again. And so that's what I see going forward. And in the end, if we do it right, as Reagan used to say, the United States, America, wants to be the shining city on the hill that the rest of the world will look up to. It'll be great again. It'll be great again. And New York, to my mind, we work through this scenario, we do it right, we work hard on it. We'll be the brightest light in that shining city on a hill. That's what we want to do. I thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do here in Lewis County on behalf of the Republican Party. Bless you. He wants to. He has to.
We would love for him to.
He
jumped most of New York State upward this way.
She's talking about Mark Molinaro, our gubernatorial candidate. It's very interesting. He actually won in the polls against Cuomo. And Cuomo admitted it in an interview with Jimmy Gill kind of Wall Street. He said that, yeah, it was a competitive campaign. That's why my polls flipped. If you follow, and this isn't my poll, this is the Siena polls, and you follow his polls going from Cuomo's favorabilities from 2011 when he got started, 77% favorable. That's because he stole our clothes. He talked like a Republican in 2010. You know, it's hard to beat that. And then one by one, you know, the SAFE Act, the $15 minimum wage, killing the natural gas industry, you know, the burdens and regulations, tax-free New York, which wasn't tax-free, all his closest associates convicted of taking money. He took it for the campaign, that was okay. They took it for themselves, they went to jail, you know. And in September of last year, the Siena poll, the end of September, its favorabilities were 50-45. Same poll in October because of Mark's campaign. That was really when people were watching, they flipped. 45 favorable, 50 unfavorable. And his job approvals in the mid-30s. And job approval is the key number. He is in deep trouble. He's in his third term, going for a fourth term. And Mark, I call him the best retail statewide politician that I've seen.
He was wonderful. He was up here and he was just phenomenal.
He's just really good, really good. But he's up for counties after re-election. Cuomo's put a good candidate up against him. That candidate's going to be well financed. People of Dutchess County, they never like to see their county exec go and try and run for something else. So but if he wins that, he'll be in the mix. Others are coming out and looking at it because there's a sense that we can win in 2022. I mean, there's a rhythm here in New York politics. Mario Cuomo, 3 terms, lost for a fourth. George Pataki, 3 terms and then stepped down. Andrew Cuomo, who's in his 3rd term, 4th terms just don't work. That's because we don't have term limits, so it's more of a natural term limit, if you will. 3 terms is kind of it. So 2022 is a real time of opportunity. Mark will be out, but other candidates, I'm seeing them come out. Now, this is the guy who does the radio announcing for the high school games, is that right? Basketball, baseball. You probably heard his voice on the radio.
I think it's fair to say that many upstate residents here in the North Country have a strong feeling that it would make sense to separate upstate from downstate. And whether that's feasible or not, how do you feel?
Yeah. There is
a law petition there, the federal government to do it. Why can't we do it?
You know, and
it's high time for it.
Yeah, and there was a time when Texas, you know, under Obama, they were thinking, okay, we'll become a separate country. And that's happened. Look what's happening in England. Scotland's going its own way. They've got their own legislature. There's a lot of logic to it. There are 2 different worlds. Whether it could happen, that's a whole nother issue. A whole nother issue. I grew up in the eastern part of Suffolk County. And the western part is really a suburb of New York City. The eastern part got inhabited from rural part of Connecticut. And it's a wholly different world. That's what I grew up in. And everyone wants to create a different county, Buchanan County, to separate it from. It has not happened. It's just hard to do politically. And I think while there's some sense of that.
I grew up in Albany. I know what this economy can do, and they still run. That was all over O'Connell.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
I was in one of your neighboring counties, and I happened to notice something about them. And I was talking, a conversation like this, and I said, do you know when you were made a county, what you were part of? And they guessed on different things. And I said, no, you were part of Albany County before you became a separate county. Aren't you glad you are a separate county? And they said, yes. Other thoughts or questions? Okay, thank you very much.